She was born different. In a world where every wolf could shift beneath the moon's light, Sarah Blackwood could not. Her pack called her defective. Her parents called her cursed. And the man fate chose as her mate? He called her a mistake. "Please, don't hurt me," she whispered, blood on her lips, her heart breaking as his rejection echoed across the clearing. They left her in the snow to die, alone, wolfless, unwanted. But the moon goddess had other plans. Because that night, the most powerful alpha king in history found her, and nothing would ever be the same again. Welcome to the Alpha's Romance Library, the home of fated mates, forbidden love, and powerful alphas who would burn the world for their lewdness. If you believe that rejection isn't the end but the beginning of destiny, then you've found your pack. Hit subscribe, drop a wolf face in the comments, and tell us where you're watching from, because tonight, you're about to witness how a broken, rejected Luna became the queen who changed everything. Sarah Blackwood had always known she wasn't like the others. While the rest of her pack ran wild beneath the moon, their wolves bursting free with pride and power, she could only stand at the edge of the field, watching, waiting, hoping. 6 years had passed since that night she was supposed to shift for the first time. 6 years since the whispers began. 6 years since she became the defective one. At 16, she had believed her first shift would change everything. She remembered standing barefoot in the sacred circle, the cold grass damp beneath her feet, the full moon hanging high like a promise. Around her, the pack had gathered, her parents in the front row, the Alpha's son, Demon Silvercrest, watching from a distance. One by one, the young wolves had shifted, their bones reshaping, their cries of pain turning to proud howls that filled the air. But when Sarah's turn came, nothing happened. Minutes turned into hours. The moon began to fade. And by dawn, the silence was heavier than any scream. Her mother's tears were quiet. Her father's disappointment was not. By morning, the whispers had started, words like broken, useless, and cursed following her wherever she went. No one wanted to look her in the eyes. No one wanted to be seen with her. To them, she wasn't a wolf. She was a burden. The years that followed were cruel. Every full moon became a reminder of what she wasn't. She tried everything, rituals, herbs, prayers to the moon goddess herself. She cut her palms under the silver light, begged for a sign, screamed until her throat bled. But her wolf never answered. The silence became her constant companion, and loneliness her only friend. Her father stopped acknowledging her. Once a proud warrior of the Silver Moon pack, he now couldn't bear the sight of his daughter. Her mother tried to hide her shame with soft words, but even her touch grew distant. Dinner conversations became empty. The house became quieter every night. Sarah found refuge in small places, books, long walks by the river, the company of her only friend, Maya. Maya was a mid-ranked wolf who saw beyond the curse. She told Sarah she still mattered, that one day the goddess would make things right. But even Sarah's hope was fading. By 22, she had learned to live in the shadows. She worked in the pack house kitchens, scrubbing floors, serving food to those who once trained beside her. Every laugh she heard behind her back was another knife in her chest. Wolves her age were finding their mates, starting families, joining the warriors' ranks. Sarah? She had no wolf. No mate. No future. Sometimes she stood at her window when the pack ran under the full moon, their howls echoing through the valley. She'd close her eyes and imagine what it must feel like, to run, to hunt, to belong. Her chest would ache so deeply she could hardly breathe. But beneath that pain, there was something else. A spark. A whisper she didn't understand. It wasn't her wolf's voice, not yet, but it was something that refused to die. She often wondered why the moon goddess had made her this way. Maybe she was a mistake. Maybe she was being punished for some sin from a past life. Or maybe, just maybe, there was a reason for her silence. A purpose hidden beneath her suffering. Still, faith could only carry her so far. Every day felt heavier. Every glance colder. Every whisper sharper. She had grown used to cruelty, but it still hurt when they left dead rabbits at her door, mocking her inability to hunt. Or when they scratched the word reject across her locker in the training hall. She never fought back. What would be the point? Without a wolf, she couldn't win. Without a wolf, she was nothing. And yet, even the weak have breaking points. One night, while cleaning the Alpha's hall after a pack gathering, Sarah overheard two warriors talking. Their laughter echoed through the empty corridors. "She's still here," one scoffed. "The defective one? Should have been sent to live with humans years ago." The other chuckled. "Maybe the goddess forgot to take her out with the trash." Sarah froze behind the column, gripping her bucket so hard her knuckles turned white. She wanted to scream, to shift, to show them she wasn't helpless. But the truth was simple, she was. That night, she cried harder than she had in years. Not because of their words, but because part of her believed them. But fate, cruel as it seemed, had other plans. The next morning, a summons arrived, a letter sealed with the Alpha's crest. Inside, in elegant handwriting, was an invitation: "You are to attend the mating ceremony tomorrow night." Her heart stopped. The annual ceremony where unmated wolves gathered under the full moon, their bonds revealed by the goddess herself. She had never been chosen, never even considered worthy to attend. Why now? Maya urged her to go. "Maybe the goddess hasn't given up on you," she said. But Sarah only laughed softly, the sound hollow. "Or maybe she's setting me up for one last humiliation." Still, something deep inside her whispered that she should go. And so, she would. Because even a broken wolf can't help but hope that one day, she'll finally be seen. The night of the mating ceremony arrived draped in moonlight and tension. The silver moon pack's sacred grounds glowed with torches, the air thick with anticipation. Wolves from neighboring packs filled the open field, their laughter and heartbeats pulsing like music beneath the stars. It was a night of destiny, where hearts were bound, fates were sealed, and lives were forever changed. For Sarah Blackwood, it was supposed to be a night of dreams. Instead, it would become a memory that haunted her forever. She hadn't wanted to go. Her heart had begged her to stay home, to spare herself one more public humiliation. But Maya had insisted. "The moon goddess works in strange ways," she'd said, helping Sarah tie her hair with trembling hands. "Maybe this is your moment." Sarah had forced a smile she didn't feel. The dress she wore once belonged to her mother, pale blue, simple, and just a little too big. She had sewn the torn hem herself, each stitch a small act of defiance. Standing before the mirror, she almost didn't recognize the girl staring back. There was a quiet strength in her reflection, though buried beneath exhaustion and years of heartbreak. As she stepped into the ceremony circle, all conversation fell away. The air shifted. Eyes turned toward her. Whispers began. "What's she doing here? She can't even shift. Maybe she came to watch what she'll never have." Her pulse thundered in her ears, but she held her head high. If the moon goddess had called her here, she would stand her ground. Then, the drums began. One slow beat, then another. A sign that the ceremony had begun. Alpha Silvercrest stood tall at the center of the circle, his voice deep and proud as he called forth the unmated wolves. The moonlight shimmered on his silver hair, his eyes sharp with authority. At his side stood his son, Demon. The sight of him stole Sarah's breath. He was everything a wolf could be, strong, commanding, impossibly handsome. His storm-gray eyes reflected the moon's glow. He carried himself like a king already, though his coronation as Alpha was still months away. For a moment, their eyes met, and the world shifted. It was like lightning had struck her heart. A blinding, golden heat surged through her veins, stealing her breath, burning and beautiful all at once. The air around her disappeared. The noise, the crowd, gone. Only him. Her body knew before her mind could catch up. The word echoed in her soul. Mate. Her knees almost gave out. Her chest tightened with disbelief. It can't be him. But Demon's reaction wasn't what she'd dreamed of since childhood. His face twisted, not with joy, but horror. He took a step back. The crowd noticed. The whispers grew louder. Sarah stood frozen, tears welling in her eyes as laughter rippled through the pack. The Alpha's son, mated to the defective one? The goddess must be cruel. Demon's father looked uneasy. The ceremony elder cleared his throat, his voice uncertain. The bond has been made clear. You must either accept or reject. Demon's voice cut through the air like ice. This must be a mistake. A collective gasp followed. Sarah's lips parted, her voice trembling. You feel it too. I know you do. But his expression hardened. I feel pity. And shame. He turned to the elder. I will not accept this. Not yet. I need time. Sarah's heart cracked, but she nodded weakly. Time, she whispered. That night, under the silver moon, a fragile thread connected them, a bond neither could deny, yet both would suffer for. Days passed. Demon sought her out in secret. His words were cold, careful. No one can know, he told her. If the pack finds out, they'll never respect me. Sarah had swallowed her pain, whispering, I'll wait. And so she did. For 3 long months, she lived in the shadow of a love she could never claim. He met her in hidden places, the forest edge, the riverbank, always at night, always when no one could see. Sometimes he brought flowers, sometimes food, sometimes nothing but silence. There were moments he almost seemed gentle. Almost. But even in those stolen minutes, Sarah felt the distance in his touch. The hesitation in his eyes. She told herself he was trying. That love took time. That maybe one day, he would look at her and not see a curse. But the truth was already unraveling. By the 2nd month, he had grown distant. His eyes lingered on another, Lyanna Moonshadow, daughter of a neighboring Alpha. A woman of power, beauty, and strength. Everything Sarah was not. When Sarah saw them together at a pack feast, his hand on Lyanna's back, her laughter soft in his ear, her heart quietly shattered. By the 3rd month, he had stopped coming altogether. The gifts stopped. The glances vanished. The whispers returned. Sarah stood alone again, clinging to a fading bond that only she still believed in. The other wolves sneered when she walked by. Her parents avoided her eyes. Even Maya's comfort couldn't silence the ache that lived inside her. Still, Sarah refused to hate him. She refused to curse the moon goddess for pairing her with a man who could not love her. Because even in the silence, even in the rejection, she still believed fate made no mistakes. But she was wrong. Fate had made a cruel twist that night, one that would destroy everything she had left, before finally setting her free. The invitation came wrapped in silver foil, a symbol of celebration, not destruction. When Sarah unfolded the parchment, her hands trembled. You are invited to the 50th birthday of Alpha Silvercrest, it read, and to witness a special announcement by his son, Demon. For one fragile heartbeat, she let herself believe it meant her. Maybe Demon was finally ready to claim her before the pack. Maybe this was the night she'd stop being a secret. Maya warned her not to go. "He's changed," she whispered. "I can feel it. There's something cold in him now." But Sarah smiled weakly. "He wouldn't invite me just to hurt me, Maya. Not him. Hope is a dangerous thing. It blinds even the wise." That night, the Silvermoon Great Hall gleamed with gold and laughter. Music filled the air, the scent of roasted meat and wine blending with perfume and pride. Every wolf of rank was there, the warriors, the elders, the alpha families. And at the center of it all, Demon Silvercrest, radiant and untouchable, the heir of the pack. Sarah entered quietly, her heart hammering against her ribs. She wore the same pale blue dress from the ceremony, the one her mother had once called lucky. Whispers followed her immediately. "She showed up. Poor thing still thinks she's his mate. She'll never learn." But Sarah kept walking. Every step was a prayer. Every breath was a plea for mercy. Demon stood on the raised platform beside his father, his expression unreadable. When his eyes finally met hers, she felt that same golden bond pull tight around her chest. Her heart dared to hope, just once more. Then Lyanna Moonshadow stepped out from behind him. She wore a crimson gown that clung like sin, her white blonde hair glittering under the chandeliers. She stood beside Demon with the ease of belonging. His arms slipped naturally around her waist. Sarah froze. The Alpha raised his goblet. "Tonight," he announced, "we celebrate not only 50 years of leadership, but the future of our pack. My son has chosen a mate worthy of his name." The crowd erupted in cheers. Demon turned, smiled, not at Sarah, but at Lyanna. And in that moment, Sarah's world ended. Her breath left her in a single, trembling exhale. Her vision blurred. The laughter, the music, the clinking glasses, it all faded into a distant hum. She waited for someone to correct it. For someone to say this was a mistake. But then Demon's voice rang clear, steady, merciless. "Lyanna Moonshadow has accepted my bond. She will stand beside me as Luna when I take my father's place as Alpha." The room exploded with applause. Sarah's legs went weak. Then the Alpha's voice boomed again. "And to close this chapter, Demon has one more announcement to make." Demon's tone turned cold. "Sarah Blackwood, approach." The crowd parted like water, their faces alive with cruel curiosity. Sarah took one step. Then another. Every movement felt like walking through knives. She could barely breathe. When she reached the platform, she lifted her head, and saw no trace of the man she'd once loved. Only a wolf ashamed of his past. "I, Demon Silvercrest," he said, his voice echoing through the hall, "reject you, Sarah Blackwood, as my fated mate. I sever this bond by my alpha blood and my own free will." The words hit her like claws to the chest. The golden thread that once connected them burned and snapped. Pain tore through her, sharp, violent, consuming. She gasped as invisible fire seared her heart. Her knees buckled. The world tilted. She wanted to scream, but no sound came. Only agony. The crowd stared as she crumpled, trembling on the marble floor. Demon looked down at her, his jaw tight. "You should have known your place," he said softly. "A wolf without a wolf is nothing." Lyanna's lips curved into a smirk. The crowd whispered approval. Some even clapped. Sarah lifted her head, tears streaking her cheeks. Her voice barely a whisper. "I would have loved you anyway." Demon turned away. "That's the problem," he said, and walked off the stage. She stayed there on the cold floor long after the laughter returned. Maya found her outside later, half-conscious, blood dripping from her bitten lip, her soul torn in two. She carried her home, whispering that it would be all right. But Sarah knew it wouldn't. For days, the pain didn't stop. The rejection burned in her chest like poison. She barely ate, barely slept. Her parents avoided her entirely, as if her shame might spread. Outside, wolves whispered and pointed. Some threw stones at her window. Others left dead birds at her doorstep. She didn't cry anymore. She just stared at the moon, empty, hollow, numb. One night, Maya begged her to run away. "They'll destroy you if you stay," she said. But Sarah only stared at her reflection in the cracked mirror. The girl who looked back wasn't Sarah Blackwood anymore, she was just a shadow of her. The world had taken everything from her, her wolf, her mate, her pride. But somewhere, deep inside that silence, something ancient stirred. A quiet whisper beneath the pain. Not yet. The goddess wasn't done with her. And the girl they tried to break was about to become the woman who would change their world. Days blurred into nights. Sarah stopped counting them. Pain became her only constant, quiet, sharp, and endless. The rejection bond was like fire under her skin, refusing to fade. Each heartbeat reminded her she was alone, unwanted, and unworthy. The Silvermoon pack had moved on. To them, she was old news, a tragedy they could gossip about over dinner. The rejected Luna, they called her, laughing as if her agony were a story told for their amusement. But one morning, something inside her broke for the final time. The Alpha's head trainer summoned her to the training grounds. Every adult was required to attend, he said. She didn't argue. She didn't have the energy to. The sky was pale gray, heavy with clouds. The air sharp and cold. She arrived quietly, head lowered, trying not to meet anyone's gaze. The other wolves gathered in circles, whispering, sneering. Demons stood in the distance beside Lyanna, both radiant, both untouchable. Today, the trainer barked, "We'll demonstrate proper defense techniques." His eyes slid toward Sarah. "Lyanna, you'll show us how it's done. Use her." The words didn't register at first. Then the truth hit her like ice. He wanted Lyanna, powerful, experienced, deadly, to fight her. A human girl who couldn't shift, couldn't heal, couldn't fight back. Maya's voice broke through the crowd. "This is wrong. You'll kill her." But the trainer only smirked. "A weak wolf is a liability. Consider this a lesson." Sarah's body trembled. She turned to run, but it was too late. Lyanna shifted. Her transformation was beautiful and horrifying all at once, bones snapping, fur rippling white as snow, eyes glowing blue with predatory hunger. The crowd gasped in awe. Sarah stumbled backward, heart racing. "Please, don't do this." But mercy had no place here. Lyanna lunged. The first strike tore through Sarah's shoulder, pain exploding through her body. She hit the ground hard, choking on blood. The second blow came faster, a rake of claws across her ribs, tearing fabric and flesh alike. The taste of iron filled her mouth. The crowd didn't move. Some cheered. Some laughed. Demon watched in silence. Sarah tried to crawl away, but Lyanna bit down on her arm and threw her like a rag doll. Bones cracked. The world spun. The pain was so sharp it almost felt distant. When it was over, she lay broken in the dirt, blood pooling beneath her. Her eyes found Demon one last time. He didn't even look back. That was when Sarah knew she was truly dead to them. Maya ran to her side, hands shaking as she pressed cloth against the wounds. "You can't stay here. They'll finish you next time. You have to leave." Sarah's lips trembled. Where would I even go? Anywhere, Maya said. There's life beyond this pack. You just have to survive long enough to find it. That night, under a moon hidden behind clouds, Sarah packed what little she owned, a few clothes, a loaf of bread, a worn photograph of her mother smiling before the disappointment set in. Maya gave her a small silver knife. It's not much, she whispered, but it's better than nothing. They embraced for the last time. You were the only one who saw me, Sarah said. Maya's tears hit her shoulder. Go. Before someone sees. Sarah slipped away into the night, moving through the forest with nothing but pain and determination to guide her. The woods were silent except for the crunch of leaves beneath her boots. Each step took her farther from the only home she'd ever known, and closer to the unknown. By dawn, she crossed into the rogue lands. The stories about them were true. The air here felt heavier, darker. The trees twisted like warning fingers, and the distant howls didn't sound like wolves, they sounded like ghosts. Rogues roamed freely, wolves without packs, without laws. Outcasts. Killers. Sarah was one of them now. She found shelter in an abandoned hunting cabin by a riverbank. The roof leaked, and the walls were scarred with claw marks, but it was enough. She cleaned, repaired, survived. She learned to hunt small animals with snares, to fish, to light fires with shaking hands. Every night she whispered to the moon goddess. Not to ask for a miracle, just to ask why. Weeks passed. Her body healed, but her spirit didn't. The loneliness was worse than the hunger. Sometimes she swore she could feel eyes watching her in the forest. And sometimes, she wished whatever was out there would just finish what the pack had started. One night, her wish almost came true. 3 rogue wolves found her cabin. Their scent hit before they did, rotting meat and blood. She barely had time to grab her knife. They burst through the door, laughter low and feral. Well, look at this, one snarled. A human girl playing wolf. Sarah backed against the wall, knife trembling in her hand. Stay back. They didn't. When the first wolf lunged, she threw silver powder, Maya's last gift, into his face. He howled in agony. She kicked the second in the gut, slashing his arm. The third grabbed her from behind, dragging her across the floor. She fought like someone with nothing left to lose, stabbing blindly until his grip loosened. By the time they fled, one was half blind, one bleeding, one dead. But her cabin was destroyed, and Sarah was bleeding too much to stop it. She staggered into the forest, the world spinning. Fever took her that night. For days, she wandered in and out of consciousness. Rain fell. Her wounds festered. She fell into the mud more than once and didn't know if she could rise again. Finally, as her vision blurred to gray, she whispered to the empty air. I'm sorry, Maya. I tried. Her legs gave out. The forest tilted. Darkness closed in. And through that darkness came a presence, massive, ancient, and terrifying. She felt it before she saw it. The earth itself seemed to tremble. Through the haze, she saw a shadow step closer. A wolf larger than any she'd ever seen, black as midnight, eyes glowing silver. Power radiated from him like fire. A voice, deep and steady, reached her fading mind. What is a dying wolf doing in my territory? Her lips parted, her voice a whisper. I'm not a wolf. Then the world went black. Warmth. That was the first thing she felt. After days of freezing rain and pain that hollowed her bones, warmth pressed against her skin like sunlight through a window. Soft sheets beneath her. The faint scent of pine, smoke, and something clean, powerful, masculine. Sarah stirred, her eyes fluttering open. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. The ceiling above her was carved stone, high and arched, lit by golden firelight. Heavy curtains framed a window so tall it seemed to touch the clouds. And the bed, gods, she'd never seen anything like it. Silken sheets, thick furs, pillows so soft she could sink forever. But then the pain came rushing back, the memory of claws, blood, and rain. Her body tensed. Her arm was wrapped in white linen. Her ribs bandaged. Her shoulder stiff but no longer bleeding. Someone had saved her. She sat up too fast, gasping as pain flared through her side. The movement drew a voice from the shadows. "Easy, little wolf. You're safe here." Sarah froze. From the corner of the room stepped a woman, elderly, graceful, with silver hair bound in a braid that shimmered like moonlight. Her presence was calm but commanding. "You nearly died," the woman said softly, approaching with a bowl of steaming herbs. "Rest now. Your fever broke only last night." Where am I?" Sarah whispered, her throat dry. "The Northern Palace," the woman said, dipping a cloth and gently pressing it to Sarah's forehead. "You're under the protection of King Kale Nightborn." The words barely made sense. The Alpha King. The ruler of all 5 territories. A name spoken only in whispers and legends. Why would a king save someone like me? The woman's smile was small but knowing. Perhaps the moon goddess wanted him to. Before Sarah could ask more, the woman turned to leave. "I am Alara, the king's head healer. Rest. When His Majesty wishes to see you, he will call for you." Then she was gone. Silence filled the grand room once more, only the sound of crackling fire and the wind beyond the windows. Sarah lay back, staring up at the ceiling, trying to understand how she had gone from bleeding in the mud to lying in a king's bed. She drifted in and out of sleep for hours. Every dream was the same, silver eyes in the darkness, a shadow watching her, the echo of a voice saying, "What is a dying wolf doing in my territory?" By the time she awoke again, sunlight flooded the room. Her strength had returned enough to stand. She slipped from the bed, bare feet brushing over the cold marble floor. The view from the window stole her breath. The palace sat high on a mountain overlooking a sea of pine and snow. Below, she could see soldiers training, rows of wolves in human form moving with deadly precision. And at their center, him. He stood taller than any man she had ever seen, broad shoulders, black hair falling just past his jaw, each motion a blend of power and control. Even from this distance, she felt it, his presence. Dominance so pure it made her heart race. As if sensing her gaze, he looked up. Their eyes met across the courtyard. Silver. Cold, ancient silver. Eyes that seemed to see through flesh and bone, straight into her soul. Sarah stumbled back from the window, breath catching in her throat. What was that feeling, fear, awe, or something else entirely? That evening, a knock echoed on her door. She jumped. When it opened, a tall man entered, not the king, but close to him in stature. His expression was kind, his brown hair tied back, his aura strong but unthreatening. "I'm Beta Marcus," he said, smiling faintly. "The king requests your presence for dinner." Sarah blinked. "Dinner? With him?" Marcus chuckled. "He's not as terrifying as people say." Then, under his breath, "Most days." He led her through vast stone corridors lit by golden torches, past portraits of kings and queens long dead. Every guard bowed as they passed. Every servant lowered their eyes. Finally, they reached enormous double doors carved with wolves chasing the moon. Marcus pushed them open. The dining hall wasn't what she expected. It was quiet. Intimate. Only one table set, lit by flickering candles. And there he was. King Kale Nightborn. He turned from the window, and the world seemed to still. Up close, his presence was overwhelming. 6.5 feet of power wrapped in black. His jaw sharp, his eyes like molten silver, his aura commanding yet oddly calm. "Sarah Blackwood," he said, his deep voice carrying like thunder softened by velvet. "You're awake." She bowed her head instinctively. "Your Majesty." "I." "Sit," he interrupted gently, motioning to the chair across from him. "You need food, not formality." Her hands trembled as she sat. The meal before her was fit for royalty: venison, roasted vegetables, warm bread, but she could barely touch it. Kale watched her, studying every move. "You were found 3 miles from my border," he said. "Half dead. What were you doing in the Rogue Lands?" Sarah swallowed hard. "Running." "From what?" Her voice cracked. "From everyone." A long silence followed. The king's gaze didn't waver. "You're wolfless," he said finally. "And yet, I can sense her." Her heart stopped. "My wolf?" He nodded once. "She's there. Buried deep. Dormant, but not gone." Sarah's throat tightened. "Everyone said I was broken. That I'd never shift. That I wasn't one of them." Kale leaned forward, his tone low, dangerous. "They were wrong." Tears burned her eyes. "Why do you care? You don't even know me." "Because I know what it's like," he said quietly. "To be feared for what you are, and hated for what you're not." She met his eyes then, and for the first time in years, she didn't see disgust. She saw understanding. Kale stood. His shadow fell across her, tall and steady. "Stay here. Heal. My healers will help you find what they took from you." Sarah hesitated. "Why?" He turned away, his voice calm but unreadable. "Because I recognize strength when I see it." And as he left the room, his words lingered in the air like a promise. "Your old life is over." Morning light spilled through the tall glass windows, painting the stone floors in shades of gold. For the first time in years, Sarah woke to the sound of silence, not taunting voices, not whispers of defective wolf, not laughter at her pain. Just the soft crackle of fire, the chirping of distant birds, and the steady rhythm of her own heartbeat. It almost felt unreal. She sat on the edge of her bed, tracing the faint scars that still lined her skin. They were healing, slowly, beautifully. For once, her reflection in the mirror didn't look like someone broken. Her eyes, still tired, held a new kind of light: survival. The door creaked open. It was Beta Marcus again, his tone bright as always. "Morning, sunshine. The king says you're free to roam the palace today. Try not to get lost, it's bigger than it looks." Sarah blinked, stunned. "Free to roam?" Marcus grinned. "You're not a prisoner, Sarah. You're a guest." The word guest echoed in her chest like something sacred. She followed him through endless hallways adorned with ancient tapestries and glowing chandeliers. Everywhere she looked, people bowed politely. No cruel whispers, no mocking glances. Just quiet respect. For someone who had spent her entire life being treated as an embarrassment, it was disorienting. The palace was alive with purpose. Warriors sparred in the courtyard, their movements precise and powerful. Servants hurried through marble corridors carrying trays and scrolls. Laughter echoed faintly from the kitchens. The air itself hummed with energy and strength. Marcus pointed toward the great hall. Breakfast is served here every morning. You'll find me, the twins, or Elara around if you need anything. The twins? Sarah asked, confused. A loud crash answered her. Two identical young men burst through a side door, nearly colliding with her. Reed, one shouted. Not my fault, the other yelled back. Marcus groaned. Perfect timing. Sarah, meet Reed and River, our Gamma twins. They train half the army and annoy the other half. Reed offered a crooked grin. So you're the king's mystery girl. River smirked. We were starting to think you were a ghost. Sarah smiled shyly, unused to the teasing. I guess I was, almost. The twins laughed. You'll fit in fine. For the first time in a long time, she did laugh, softly, carefully, like someone relearning how. Days turned into weeks. Sarah's strength returned. Her laughter became less guarded, her steps more confident. She explored the palace gardens, the ancient library, the training grounds overlooking the frozen valley. The northern palace became more than a sanctuary, it became a place where she began to exist again. Elara, the healer, studied her condition endlessly. Her chamber filled with old scrolls and mystical tools. Your wolf is there, child, she often murmured. Not gone, just sealed. I can feel her heartbeat beneath your own. Sealed? Sarah would ask. By who? Elara's wrinkled fingers traced symbols in the air. That's what I mean to find out. Then there was Kale. The Alpha King. He sought her out every day, though he never explained why. Sometimes, it was simple, morning walks through the palace gardens, where his silence felt more comforting than words. Other times, he'd bring her to the training grounds, insisting she learn to defend herself. You may not shift, he said, circling her slowly, but strength isn't only in the wolf. It's in the will. His presence consumed the air around him, raw power restrained by discipline. When he moved, she could almost feel the air bend. And yet, when he looked at her, there was something softer. During training, his hands guided hers, correcting her stance, his touch firm but careful. Again, he'd say, You flinched too much. She'd glare, panting. You hit too hard. A rare smile ghosted across his lips. Perhaps. When she finally managed to land a clean strike, he stepped back, impressed. Good. Now you're learning what power feels like. But it wasn't just power she was learning, it was presence. His, and her own. At night, she found herself in the library, surrounded by books older than history. Sometimes, she'd catch Kale there too, reading by candlelight. Once, she asked, Why do you read so much? He didn't look up. Because wisdom fades faster than strength. And what are you searching for? She asked softly. He finally looked at her. Maybe the same thing you are. A reason. Their eyes lingered, the air heavy with words unspoken. But beneath the growing comfort, a storm brewed quietly. Elara's tests revealed the truth one evening. Sarah, she said, placing a trembling hand on her shoulder, your wolf isn't gone. She's trapped. Someone, or something, sealed her when you were born. Sarah's breath caught. Why would anyone do that? Elara's eyes were sorrowful. Because what sleeps inside you, is powerful. Too powerful, perhaps. When Kale heard, his reaction was swift. We'll find who did this. We'll break the seal. Sarah's heart twisted. And if it kills me? Kale's voice softened. Then we find another way. You've suffered enough, Sarah. I won't let pain claim you again. There was no command in his tone this time. No dominance. only quiet conviction. She met his eyes, and for the first time since the rejection, she felt seen. Truly seen. Later that night, standing alone on her balcony, Sarah watched the snow fall over the mountains. The palace lights glowed like stars below. She wrapped her arms around herself, whispering to the cold air, "Why me?" Somewhere far behind her, Cale stood in the shadows, unseen but watching. His voice, low and steady, carried through the night. Because fate bends for the ones strong enough to survive it. She turned, startled. But he was already gone. And for the first time in years, Sarah smiled, not because she believed him, but because, deep down, a part of her wanted to. Thunder rolled across the northern skies. The palace trembled under the storm's weight, lightning carving silver veins across the dark horizon. Inside the great library, flames danced wildly in the hearth, casting long shadows over ancient shelves and dust-covered scrolls. Sarah sat at the long oak table, surrounded by open books, parchment, and the quiet hum of her own heartbeat. Her eyes burned from sleepless nights, her mind tangled with questions that had no answers. Who sealed her wolf? Why her? Every page she turned whispered the same silence. Then the doors burst open. Elara stormed in, rain soaking her gray cloak, her hands clutching an ancient leather-bound tome. "I found it," she gasped. "By the goddess, I finally found it." Sarah rose from her chair. "Found what?" Cale followed behind her, his presence filling the room like a storm contained in human form. "Explain, Elara." The healer's trembling fingers opened the book. Its pages glowed faintly, ink shimmering like moonlight. "I searched every record, every prophecy, and now I know. Sarah, you are not wolfless. You were never defective." Sarah's breath caught. "Then what am I?" Elara turned the book toward her. The illustration on the page took her breath away, a majestic she-wolf, pure silver from snout to tail, eyes glowing like stars. Beneath it, ancient runes translated softly under Elara's voice. The silver wolf. Born once every 1,000 years. A wolf of balance and light. Their power unmatched. Their bond sacred. Their presence, world-changing. Sarah whispered, "That can't be me." But Cale stepped closer, his silver eyes steady. "It is. I knew it the moment I found you in that forest." Elara continued, her voice trembling with awe. "Silver wolves are rare beyond legend. Their wolves are sealed at birth, to protect them and the world from power they are not yet ready to wield. They remain dormant until two things awaken them, life-threatening danger, or the acceptance of a true mate." Sarah's heart skipped. Her mind flashed with memories, her pain, her rejection, the night she almost died in the Rogue Lands. The danger, it wasn't enough, she whispered. "So it must be." Her voice faltered as she met Cale's gaze. He didn't look surprised. Just calm, certain. "The mate bond," he said softly. The room felt suddenly smaller. The fire crackled louder. Her pulse drummed in her ears. Cale moved closer, his tone low and steady. "When I first saw you, Sarah, I felt it, the bond. Stronger than anything I've ever known. But I said nothing. I wanted you to have the choice I never did." Sarah's lips parted, disbelief and fear warring inside her. "You're saying, you're my true mate?" He nodded once. "Yes. And whether you accept it or not, I will never force fate upon you." Elara smiled softly, closing the book. "The moon goddess has given you both a rare gift. A bond of light and shadow, silver wolf and night-born king. You were meant to find each other." Sarah shook her head slowly, tears blurring her vision. "But I'm not ready." I don't even know who I am. Cale's voice gentled. Then we'll find out together. He reached out, not to touch, but to offer. His hand open, patient, steady. The firelight flickered across his face, softening the sharpness in his eyes. Your wolf isn't lost, Sarah. She's waiting for you to believe you deserve her. She wanted to believe it. Gods, she wanted to. But years of rejection and shame wrapped around her like chains. And if I can't, she whispered. Cale stepped closer, his voice a low promise. Then I'll keep believing for you. Until you do. Something shifted in her then. The air itself seemed to hum, a faint silver glow threading through her skin like veins of light. Elara gasped. It's beginning, she whispered. Your wolf feels your heart awakening. Sarah pressed a hand to her chest. I feel warmth. Like she's. Reaching back, Cale finished, watching her closely. Don't fight it. The glow pulsed stronger, silver light shimmering from beneath her skin. The air around her rippled with energy, ancient, wild, divine. Then, as quickly as it began, it faded. Sarah gasped, trembling, gripping the table for balance. What was that? Elara's eyes gleamed with tears. A whisper of her power. She's alive, and she's listening. Cale's gaze never left Sarah. She's waiting for one thing now. Sarah looked up. What? Your choice. The words sank deep. Her choice. Not destinies. Not demons. Hers. Outside, thunder rumbled once more, echoing through the palace like the heartbeat of the heavens. Sarah stepped toward the window, staring out into the storm. The reflection that stared back wasn't the broken girl who begged to be loved. It was someone new. Someone awakening. For the first time, she whispered to the power inside her, not as a plea, but as a promise. I'll find you. I'll set you free. Behind her, Cale's voice was soft but certain. And when you do, the world will finally see what it means to kneel before a queen. Dawn stretched its golden fingers over the palace walls, scattering soft light across marble floors and silent corridors. Sarah hadn't slept. Not after what she'd learned. The words echoed over and over in her mind. Silver wolf. Sealed power. True mate. Every breath she took felt heavier now, like her destiny had weight. She didn't know whether to run or to stay. The air outside the tower balcony was sharp and cold, carrying the scent of pine and distant snow. She leaned against the railing, the mountains stretching endlessly before her. Somewhere in those endless peaks, she had been broken, rejected, left to die. And now, fate had brought her here, to the Alpha King himself. A knock at the door startled her. Come in, she said softly. Cale stepped inside. His black shirt clung to his chest from training, his hair damp, his presence as calm as ever, but his eyes, those molten silver eyes, watched her carefully. You didn't sleep, he said. I couldn't, she admitted, turning away. Too much, truth in one night. Cale nodded. Elara told me you nearly collapsed after the surge. How do you feel? Different, she whispered. Like something inside me is waking up, and I don't know if I'm ready for her. He crossed the room slowly. His steps were soundless, yet each one pressed against the air like thunder. You don't have to be ready, he said quietly. You only have to be willing. Sarah faced him then, searching his expression for pity, but found none. Only patience. Only strength. Marcus told me, she said after a long silence. That you knew I was your mate from the beginning. Cale's jaw flexed. I did. Why didn't you tell me? He took a breath before answering. Because I saw what that knowledge had already done to you. Demon took away your choice, your freedom. I wanted to give both back before you ever looked at me and saw a bond instead of a man. His voice softened, steady but aching. I wanted you to want me because you chose me. Sarah's throat tightened. And what if I don't? What if I can't give you what you deserve? Cale moved closer, his hand reaching out, but stopping inches from her cheek. His voice dropped to a whisper. Then I'll still protect you. Because loving you is never about what you could give me, it's about what I see when I look at you. Her heart stuttered. And what do you see? He smiled faintly. A survivor. A woman who stood against cruelty and still learned to be kind. A Luna who doesn't even know how powerful she already is. The silence between them thickened, electric, fragile, sacred. I don't know how to love someone anymore, she whispered. Not after what he did. Not after what they did. Cale finally closed the space between them, his voice low and rough. Then let me remind you. His hand brushed her face, his thumb tracing the scar along her jaw, the one demon's claws had left. But there was no disgust in his touch. Only reverence. You survived them, he murmured. You don't need to hide the proof. Sarah's breath hitched. The air around them shifted. She could feel her heartbeat sinking with his. Could feel the faint, warm tug of the bond that had always been there, waiting. Cale leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear. I've waited long enough, Sarah. Tell me to stop, and I will. But she didn't. She couldn't. When their lips met, it wasn't fire, it was everything. The kiss was deep and slow, a merging of souls long separated. Years of pain, loneliness, and fear melted under that single touch. The air shimmered with silver light, and for a heartbeat, the palace itself seemed to breathe with them. The bond flared to life. Sarah gasped as silver light rippled across her skin, threads of energy wrapping around her heart and sinking into Cale's. The connection locked, unbreakable, eternal. Cale broke the kiss only to whisper, You feel it too, don't you? She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. It's like coming home. Then let me mark you, he said softly. Not as a claim, but as a promise. Sarah tilted her head, baring her throat. His canines lengthened, gleaming in the candlelight. The bite was gentle but electric, a flood of heat rushing through her veins as her wolf, her long silent wolf, stirred. For the first time, Sarah felt her. A powerful, feminine voice in her mind. Finally, you let him in. Her knees weakened, her body trembling as Cale held her close. His voice trembled with awe. She's awake, isn't she? Sarah nodded, tears streaming freely. She's here. I can feel her. The air vibrated with power. Silver light bloomed around them again, so bright it painted the walls. Her wolf's voice echoed in her soul. You are not broken. You are born anew. Cale's arms tightened around her, grounding her as the power surged. Easy, he murmured. Breathe through it. The glow slowly dimmed, leaving only the steady rhythm of two hearts beating as one. Sarah pressed her forehead against his chest, her voice barely a whisper. You kept your promise. Cale smiled, his hand threading through her hair. Always. They stood there in silence, two fated souls finally aligned, as the dawn outside turned to full morning. And deep within her, a spark, silver, ancient, unstoppable, began to rise. The awakening had begun. The moon rose full and unyielding that night, a silver coin suspended in a sea of black. The courtyard of the northern palace stood silent, every torch extinguished, every wolf gathered beneath the heavens. The air itself felt alive, humming with unseen power. And in the center of it all, stood her. Sarah Blackwood. The girl who once begged for mercy now stood barefoot on sacred stone, her white gown rippling in the wind like liquid moonlight. Her hair shimmered with silver strands that hadn't been there before. The mark on her neck, Cale's mark, glowed faintly against her skin, pulsing with the same rhythm as her heart. She could feel her wolf beneath her skin now, restless, eager, alive. Every breath drew in strength. Every heartbeat carried promise. Cale stepped forward, stopping a few paces away. The Alpha King, cloaked in darkness, eyes glowing like silver fire. His voice rumbled across the courtyard, low and steady. "Breathe, my Luna. The moon is watching. She's calling for you." Sarah lifted her gaze to the sky, tears pricking her eyes. For years, she had watched that same moon and felt nothing but emptiness. Now, its light filled her veins like a forgotten lullaby returning home. Ilara's voice, calm but trembling with awe, broke the silence. "When the seal breaks, it will not be gentle. But do not resist it. Let it come through you." Sarah nodded. Her hands trembled at her sides. Her chest felt tight. Cale's hand brushed hers briefly, a fleeting, grounding touch. "I'm right here." Then the first tremor hit. Her knees buckled. The air around her shimmered with energy, visible to the naked eye, silver threads snaking through the air, wrapping around her arms and torso. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The energy surged again, stronger this time, knocking the breath from her lungs. Her body arched. Pain and power collided as light erupted from her skin. Bones shifting, not breaking, singing. The sound was music and thunder, ancient and divine. Cale's eyes blazed with pride and worry, his wolf pacing restlessly inside him. Every instinct told him to help her, but he couldn't interfere. This was her becoming. Sarah screamed, not in agony, but in release. The voice that left her throat was layered, two voices in one, human and wolf harmonizing in perfect unison. Then came silence. The light shattered outward like glass, and from its center emerged the creature of legend. Her. The silver wolf. The courtyard fell into stunned reverence. Wolves dropped to their knees instinctively, their own beast submitting to the primal, celestial dominance radiating from her. Ilara whispered, voice shaking, "By the moon goddess, she's real." Sarah's wolf form glowed under the moonlight, massive, elegant, for like molten silver flowing with every breath. Her eyes burned an impossible shade of blue, ancient and endless. Her presence was overwhelming, divine. Cale's wolf surged forward from within him before he even realized he'd shifted. Midnight black fur, eyes bright as steel. The Alpha King stood before her, larger than any wolf alive, except the one who now faced him. For a heartbeat, predator met predator. Alpha met Luna. King met Queen. Then, Cale's wolf dipped his head in silent reverence. "My queen." Sarah's wolf responded in kind. "My king." Their bond ignited between them, a wave of power that rippled through every wolf present. The earth itself seemed to exhale as balance returned to the kingdom. Cale's wolf nudged her gently, urging her forward. "Run with me." And together, they did. They raced through the forests, their paws striking the earth in perfect rhythm. The wind tore past them, the world blurring into streaks of shadow and silver. For the first time, Sarah felt truly free. The joy of speed, the thrill of power, the unity of body and soul, it was everything she had dreamed of as a child, and more. Cale's black wolf ran beside her like her shadow, protective and proud. When he looked at her, she could feel his pride bleeding through the bond. "Look at you," his voice echoed in her mind, rough and awed. "You were never meant to crawl. You were born to rule." Her wolf laughed inside her, wild and pure. Then let's rule together. They burst into a moonlit clearing, stopping at a cliff overlooking the entire northern kingdom. The forest stretched endlessly below, the rivers gleaming like silver veins under the night sky. Sarah's wolf stood at the edge, chest rising and falling, drinking in the sight. This world had once spat on her name, called her worthless. Now, it bowed beneath her paws. Kale's wolf came to her side, brushing his muzzle against her neck. Their connection pulsed like a heartbeat, two souls, one bond, one destiny. In the quiet of that sacred moment, the Silver Queen raised her head to the sky and howled. It wasn't the cry of pain she'd once made in the snow. It was a song of freedom, ancient, powerful, unstoppable. Kale joined her, his deep, resonant howl blending with hers until the entire forest echoed with the sound of their bond. The court below lifted their heads, howling in unison, the sound carrying across mountains, rivers, and valleys. The rejected Luna had become their queen. And for the first time in centuries, the moon goddess smiled. The palace gates thundered open. Snow drifted in slow, graceful spirals as horses stamped against the frozen ground. Banners bearing the silver moon crest flapped weakly in the wind, once a symbol of pride, now of desperation. Sarah stood at the top of the grand staircase, her gown of silver and white trailing behind her like liquid moonlight. A crown of frost and crystal rested upon her brow, her eyes glowing faintly, half woman, half goddess. Behind her, Kale stood in silence, his aura calm but lethal. Around them, the northern court gathered in quiet reverence. Every warrior, every servant, every noble could feel it. Today was not a mere meeting. It was Judgment Day. Alpha Demon Silvercrest dismounted first. His confidence faltered the moment his eyes met hers. He looked thinner, weaker than before, haunted by the weight of his own ruin. Beside him, Lyanna Moonshadow hid behind her veil, trembling. "Your Majesty," Demon began, forcing a bow that felt more like humiliation than respect. "We come seeking forgiveness, and alliance." The hall was so silent you could hear the fire crackling in the hearth. Sarah descended the steps slowly, her every movement deliberate. "Forgiveness?" Her voice carried through the hall, soft but sharp as steel. "You mean to say, after years of cruelty, after beating a girl who couldn't defend herself, after leaving her bleeding in the dirt, you now want forgiveness?" Demon flinched. "We were wrong. Blind to your worth. I was blind. I offer penance, Anne." She cut him off with a raised hand. "Do not dress greed in the language of regret." He froze, his words dying in his throat. Sarah circled him slowly, her gaze cold and unrelenting. "Tell me, Demon, when you looked at me as I begged you to stop, what did you see?" He swallowed hard. "A weak wolf." "And what do you see now?" He hesitated, his voice breaking. "A queen." "Wrong again," she said, stepping closer. "You see what your cruelty created. You see the result of every wound, every scar, every humiliation you thought would break me." Her voice deepened, layered with the faint echo of her wolf. "I became this because you left me to die. And now you come crawling back because your Luna cannot bear you an heir." Lyanna gasped softly, shame flooding her face. Kale's voice rumbled from behind Sarah, low and dangerous. "You should be grateful she still allows you to breathe in her presence." Demon's composure shattered. "Please, I only wish to make things right." Sarah stopped before him, her glowing eyes inches from his. "There is no making right what was done. There is only truth. And the truth is, your rejection was the best gift the goddess ever gave me." The words struck harder than any blade. She turned, addressing the gathered court. The Silver Moon Pack thrived on cruelty. They shamed the weak, worshipped the strong, and called it honor. Today, I end that legacy. Gasps rippled through the room. She lifted her hand, silver light spiraling around her fingers. By the power of the moon's mark upon me, Sarah Blackwood of the Silver Line, Queen of the Northern Kingdom, decree that the Silver Moon Pack is stripped of its title, its lands, and its trade rights. Let them learn what it means to live as those they once despised. Demon dropped to his knees. Please, Your Majesty, my people. Your people, she interrupted coldly, will survive. But you will not lead them again. She turned to Kale. Alpha King, by my authority as Luna of the North, I sentence Demon Silvercrest to exile. Let him wander the rogue lands he once condemned others to. Let him feel what it means to be powerless. Kale's expression didn't change. As you command, my queen. 2 guards stepped forward. Demon tried to speak, but no words came. His gaze lingered on her, half pleading, half broken. For the first time, he saw not the fragile girl he'd mocked, but the legend she'd become. As he was dragged away, his voice cracked. Sarah. I loved you once. She didn't look back. You loved control. And you lost both. The doors closed behind him with a final, echoing slam. Lyanna fell to her knees. Please, mercy. Sarah's gaze softened, just barely. I am not like you. You will live. But you will remember this day every time the moon rises. Remember that your cruelty birthed a queen. Lyanna's sobs faded as the guards led her away. For a long moment, silence filled the throne room. Then Kale stepped forward, his hand brushing hers, grounding her once more. You did what I could not, he said quietly. You turned pain into justice. Sarah looked up at him, her eyes shimmering like silver fire. Justice is not vengeance. It's the truth made visible. He smiled. And you made it shine brighter than the moon. The court erupted in applause, the sound echoing like thunder. Sarah turned to face them all, her heart steady, her spirit unshakable. She was no longer the broken girl begging to belong. She was the Silver Queen, chosen not by chance, but by destiny forged in fire and rejection. As the torches blazed brighter, Kale lifted her hand before the court. Behold your queen, he declared. The wolf who rose from ashes. The Luna who brought light back to the north. Cheers filled the hall. And as the moonlight poured through the high windows, Sarah lifted her gaze once more. Somewhere deep inside, her wolf whispered with quiet pride. We were never meant to be small. Sarah smiled softly, whispering back, no. We were meant to rise. In the end, the girl who once whispered, please, don't hurt me. I can't shift, stood before kings and monsters and made them bow. Sarah's story wasn't one of luck, it was one of scars turned into strength, of pain reborn as power. They called her broken. The moon goddess called her chosen. She was rejected, beaten, humiliated, and left to die in the cold, yet from those ashes, a silver flame rose. And when that flame met the darkness of an Alpha King who saw her worth, the world changed. Because sometimes, the ones who beg for mercy become the ones who grant it. Sometimes, the ones who were rejected become the rulers the world needs most. Sarah didn't just survive, she became legend. And every time the moon rises over the Northern Kingdom, her howl still echoes through the mountains. A reminder that even the weakest wolf can rewrite her destiny. This is the Alpha's Romance Library, where every broken heart finds its second chance. And every rejected soul learns that true love never looks away. If Sarah's journey touched your heart, tap the like button so more wolves can find this story. Subscribe and join our pack, because next week, another tale awaits. A cursed Alpha, a dying Luna, and a bond powerful enough to defy fate itself. Until then, remember. Your rejection is not your ending, it's the beginning of your rise. Stay wild, stay brave, and never forget the moon is watching.